We're ready for the start. They're off.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome into the ExpressBet First Call podcast. Glad to have you along. If you're listening on your typical audio podcast modus operandi, or if you're watching us on the video version on the ExpressBet YouTube page or across social media, I'm Jeremy Plonk. That's Jeff Siegel. Jeff, we are going to talk about 8 stakes races as we always do, and no New York racing this weekend. So it's a little bit of a weird spot on the calendar. We are post Saratoga, but we still have closing week at Del Mar. There's a little shift this year.
Yeah, it's good, actually. Pimlico is going to be opening up. Always love the handicap Pimlico. Kentucky Downs, I mean, it's a very unique type of handicapping process there.
Yeah.
Del Mar is closing, but now we might be dealing with wet weather, which kind of freaks everybody out. I mean, we don't even know what rain is. It's supposed to rain here where I am, and I think my lawn hasn't been watered in weeks because we've been on a kind of a I don't even know what you call it, but we can't water our lawn. That's an edict from the county. So I think everybody out here is just like, thank you, Lord, type of thing. But it might mess up the racing at Del Mar. So we'll find it out. We'll try to do our best. And there's some excellent racing and some really important racing out here in California for 2-year-olds, whether notwithstanding with the debutante and, of course, the Del Mar Futurity.
We record our podcast each Friday, of course, to look ahead to the weekend. Got a couple stakes races tonight at Remington Park in Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma Stallion races there for 3-year-olds and 3-year-old fillies. So we got a little stakes action on a Friday night. We will focus our handicapping attention on Saturday as well as Sunday's closing day at Del Mar Futurity. Let's take a look at the lineup of 8 races that we'll have for you on the podcast. There are 4 stakes races Saturday at Pimlico. We will look at 2 of those, the All Along and the Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. Kentucky Downs has a big stakes day. The Mint Million was washed out last weekend, rescheduled for this Saturday card, which also includes the $1 million Kentucky Turf Cup, 3 $1 million races. I think almost $5 or $6 million in purse money given away Saturday at Kentucky Downs will be a big one. We'll look at the Mint Million, the Turf Sprint, and the Kentucky Turf Cup as 3 of our handicapping destinations. At Del Mar on Saturday, they'll run the fillies 2-year-old big race, the Del Mar Debutante, as well as the Distaffers on the turf. We hope, as long as Mother Nature cooperates. The John C. Maybe, of course, the turf feature there. And then on Sunday, closing day at Del Mar, everything must go. The Del Mar Futurity, the feature race there on the Sunday, September 11th card. We're used to seeing, Del Mar wrap up Labor Day, the Wednesday after Labor Day, a little bit later than usual, but we're certainly going to be locked in and loaded this weekend with no Saratoga to focus a lot on the Del Mar action. Of course, the national handle will focus a lot on Kentucky Downs and Del Mar, to be sure. $10 money back specials if you bet the full card this Saturday at Pimlico. The money back special with ExpressBet and First Bet, if you bet on those platforms, means if your win bet finishes second or third, you'll get your money back up to $10 invested. So be sure to look at the win bet Saturday at Pimlico on the full card. And we also have that $10 money back special every day of the Kentucky Downs meet. This weekend, of course, that means Saturday and Sunday. Jeff, before we get into our picks and handicapping, I want to give a little shout out to the Fun in the Sun contest winners, Saratoga and Del Mar. The 6 weeks they ran concurrently, and last week's final table comprised this year's contest. And the winner was Kevin Saunders with a total of $283. Congratulations to Kevin. 10 $10 win bets last week, the last 5 at Saratoga, the first 5 at Del Mar. He pulled out $283 in 10 $10 win bets. That was $73 more than anybody else. This was not a photo finish. He won like Flightline in the Pacific Classic, Jeff, with a $73 margin. Congratulations, more than $9,000 in prize money to Kevin Saunders. There was a tie for second place, both at $210. That was Eric Reynolds and John Lafferty. So Eric and John, congratulations. They'll each pick up $3,100 apiece. Nothing to sneeze at there. More than $17,000 given away in the final table, where the final 30 players were eligible to play after 5 qualified each of the 6 weeks of the regular season. So Fun in the Sun is in the books for the 3rd year with the final table format. and a third different winner this year. It's Kevin Saunders. So congratulations to Kevin. Jeff, let's try to get a flight line margin of victory in a couple of our handicapping picks this week. What do you say, partner? Let's get into it and get started. First up for us will be Pimlico's All Along Stakes. That's Saturday's race number 7. 4 stakes on the card at Pimlico, races 6, 7, 8, and 9 in succession. 7th race, the All Along Stakes, 1 mile and an eighth on the turf. And Jeff, this race named for the great race mare All Along. She was most famous for winning the Arc de Triomphe. 1983, 1984, there was probably nobody better on the turf worldwide in that era with John Henry here stateside. But All Along seen here winning the Arc de Triomphe. You say, why is there a stakes race named for her in Maryland? She won the Washington, D.C. International at Laurel Park. And Jeff, right before the Breeders' Cup, the year before the Breeders' Cup, the D.C. International kind of was the Breeders' Cup for turf races and international races, along with the Arlington Million in the U.S. So we remember All Along with the stakes in her name. Any thoughts on her as you get into the field?
Yeah, she was a great mare. And again, coming along before the Breeders' Cup. And you mentioned the DC International. That was one of my favorite races growing up because it was international. There were very few races that attracted European horses. That was a specific race that they actually went out and recruited horses like the Breeders' Cup, and it was an opportunity to enjoy international racing on a major scale in an era where there really wasn't that much. Now half of our grass races are won by the Euros, but back then it was good. I mean, I go all the way back to the 50s. I remember a horse named Bald Eagle winning there. One of my favorite as a young guy, because I remember watching him win that race, and so, but All Along was a fantastic race. Filly winning the Arc, as you mentioned, and this race named after her. And it came up fairly competitive, although I do think Christophe Clement has the right one in Plum Alley. I mean, she's Plum Alley, I guess it's pronounced. But anyway, she's a very, very consistent filly who's been facing legitimate, graded stakes company, and maybe not quite up to winning a grade 1 or a grade 2, but this race is a listed stakes. And based on her form, her recent form, it really should be within her scope. She did win a listed stakes at Aqueduct back in April. A couple of graded stakes races after that she wasn't quite up to. Most recently in the Delarose at Saratoga, earned for her a career top number. So I really think that she's well placed here. She is 9-5 in the morning line. That's probably about right.
Yeah, you got a lot of big barns in this race. You've got Clement that you talked about with Plum Alley, your top pick. Chad Brown's in here with Capital Structure. In a Hurry's Shug McGahee representing. Lake Lucerne's in here for Brendan Walsh. This looks a lot like a Naira race, and because Naira being dark this week probably helps the situation. You also have the fact that you've got a couple fillies in here, mares now at 5 years old, looking for black type. And while this is only a $100,000 stakes race, this can be worth a lot of money to these mares as brood mares moving forward. Capital Structure's yet to win a stakes race at age 5 for Chad Brown. It's probably a good reason why she's here. They want to try to get black type on her resume. Same way with In a Hurry. She has yet to win a stakes race, and she's 5 for Shug McGahee. So these mares, if they are going to have a future, and they will as brood mares down the line, winning this black type race, great listed stakes race even, can do a lot to their page when they go to sell horses and breed down the line. So it could be a very important race, not only on Saturday, but for down the line, the value of some of these race mares.
It's got a great name too, All Along. It's not like it's the Turf Paradise something or other. I mean, when you see a race like All Along, you have to kind of scratch. That sounds like a really important race,
That's right.
So if you win it or even get some black type, it is very valuable. And some of these, as you mentioned, are looking for that. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think that Christophe, who's had a terrific year, especially with these fillies, and he's kind of like the poor man's Chad Brown, only he's not real poor.
I don't think poor in front of his name is probably
not quite, but he does an exceptional job, and I think he's got this filly Plum Alley in a really good spot.
We talk about racing at Pimlico this weekend, and I was remiss to mention at the top of the show, it's opening day Friday at Pimlico for a November meet. First time running in September at Pimlico since back in, I think, 2003, I believe was the last time they ran this time of year. So they added a couple weeks of racing before they go back to Laurel Park to the Pimlico schedule this year. The horsemen seem to love it, and we've got some interesting stakes races this weekend at Old Hilltop, including the Baltimore-Washington International Turf Cup. The Turf Cup goes as race number 9, the fourth of 4 consecutive stakes races on that Saturday card at Hi-Ho Pimlico. And again, this is kind of the redux of the Washington, D.C. International. Came back several years ago as the BWI Turf Cup, a grade 3 company here, Jeff, and for a purse of $200,000. We talked about the old Washington, D.C. International and your memories of it. I remember during the Cold War as a young man and, going back to the early 1980s and the Russians and the Americans, there were various boycotts of the Olympics and things like that. But I'll be damned if there weren't Russian horses in the Washington, D.C. International. I remember going to root against the Russians, even in horse racing. It's the way that goes. And the Russian horses were terrible. They had good-looking past performance lines, but they absolutely, they faced plow horses probably over there. The Russians got none of it when they came here for the D.C. International, and we liked that back in the Cold War.
I actually saw a video on social media about a month ago of the Russian Derby, and it was won by a 3-year-old by California Chrome, which is one of the reasons why it was being on. And I mean, they had better horses at Ferndale, I think. So, I mean, this horse won the race by a pole, and he really wasn't that great of a horse at all, but he won the Russian Derby. So whatever the case is, I don't think the racing has improved all that much in the last 40 years. Maybe I'm wrong, but
probably not.
Will see. But it is international for sure, as you mentioned, and we've got a couple of horses. Well, actually, at least just one in this race. A horse named ALTO, not Palo Alto, but ALTO, trained by Graham Motion, coming in from France, where he was, just a kind of allowance horse. So I don't know how well he's going to do. He's 7-2 in the morning line, so maybe somebody thinks he's competitive. He was decent in moderate company. He won a race at Cutter earlier this year. Again, I don't know that form real well.
Yeah, it's about Russian, I think.
Yeah, but I actually ended up going with Set Piece here, and primarily because of his win in the dinner party during Preakness Week. I know he likes the course. He had a terrible trip in the Forbidden Apple at Saratoga when he was 5th, but beaten 3 lengths and should have been right there. And then he was just a dull and non-threatening 4th at the Arlington Million at Churchill. But I will not hold any poor performance against any horse at Churchill with that messed up turf course. So yeah. I'm going to think that Set Piece is going to rebound here for Brad Cox and run back to his dinner party win. And if he does that, then I think he can handle this assignment.
The one thing I like to do is to go to a dinner party. Let's go back to it and see Set Piece from Preakness Week.
That piece is still lingering along about 6th in the front. Appears to have some run, but it's going to have to come wide. Set Piece set down, but set down wide. Set Piece on the extreme outside. And they're into the stretch with ATONE. ATONE up front. Set Piece in the center of the course. In between horses, Tango, Tango, Tango. Set Piece is coming way out in the center. Out inside is ATONE. Trying to dig in between horses is Tango, Tango, Tango. But Set Piece back on the winning beam. It is Set Piece and Flarangeroux to take the dinner party. They did it by 2 from Tango, Tango, Tango. ATONE was 3rd and Beacon Hill 4th.
Jeff, I like Set Piece back in the Arlington Million, and he didn't run well that day. But like you said, don't hold anything against the horse based on that course. The one thing I'm a little worried about with Set Piece in this particular spot is last year he was running in the Woodbine Mile this time of year, and the Woodbine Mile coming up in a couple weeks. They're not going back to that big $1 million race, and they're taking the lower hanging fruit here back to Pimlico. Of course, they know he likes the course, but that kind of tells me he's not as good as he was last year, probably in their mind. But he may not have to be, obviously, because this isn't the Woodbine Mile. This is a different kind of race here in terms of quality. But I think he might be a little bit vulnerable. I took a shot in here with BIZZEE Channel. This is a horse who I think is going to be a price. I think he can control the pace up front. I know he was claimed last time, and he was claimed off of Larry Ravelli, who's a high percentage, high octane trainer that you don't move horses up off of. But Lacey Gaudette does really good with her horses in Maryland. And I think there's a price shot that BIZZEE Channel can take a come a long way on the front end. This is a horse who's got some back class about him. He's not a claimer, but he was given up last time in an optional claimer for a big price tag, given his advanced age. So I think Busy Channel's got a shot in here. Field Pass, I want to let you know he's entered here and in the mid-million at Kentucky Downs. I'm not sure which race he's going to go to. So obviously we want to check scratches and changes and get updated on this race. But I think Busy Channel's got a shot to go a long ways, but those kind of rarely win, I think, kind of against this quality of competition. But they often run a long ways and get beat by somebody in the end and run second. So I think Busy Channel's the horse you might want to use underneath in Exactas. A good horse to kind of play the logical horses over Busy Channel and maybe a little win bet as well if he happens to just get bold enough to win the whole thing.
Well, he is 15-1 on the morning line, and he's better than that. That's for sure. First off, the claim, he's obviously doing well. Lacey claimed him for 50 and runs him in a stake, so that's a very good sign. And here's a horse who was good enough to win a grade 3 last year, so it's not like he's some cheap horse who's just gotten good. I mean, he has some back quality and back class with the tactical speed that you mentioned going a mile. And I absolutely think that he is a major contender if, in fact, Set Piece isn't what he used to be. And I don't think he is. But I also think Brad Cox recognizes that. I think that's the main reason why he's not going back to Woodbine. Is he said, look, this horse is 6 years of age. He's a racehorse. He's had his issues. He's maybe not quite as good as he used to. We gave him his chance in the Arlington Million. Grade 1, he didn't fire that day. Let's try to get real. He is a gelding, and we want him to run till he's 9, so let's not overmatch him anymore and give him a chance. And we'll see. I mean, this is the kind of field that Set Piece really should beat if he's close to being what he used to be. And if he's not, then the horse that you like, Busy Channel, has every chance and looks just as good as any of the others for sure at a big price. I would absolutely use him somewhere for sure.
If you're following the first bet, artificial intelligence, the AI picks, I like Field Pass in there at 24%. A modest win projection, but the top one, that tells you it's a pretty wide open race according to the algorithm. Let's switch our attention from Pimlico, where don't forget those $10 money back specials this week on all races Saturday at Pimlico. Any win bet you make in any race on the card, get up to $10 back if your win bet finishes second or third. So it's worth taking a shot. Maybe add some prices in there where you have a little safety net. We go next now to Kentucky Downs. Last week's Mint Million was washed out by rain. It's rescheduled for this Saturday. Goes as race number 5 on the card. One of $3 million races on the Saturday card in Franklin, Kentucky. Kentucky Downs race number 5 is a mile, grade 3 company. Jeff, we've got a field of 10. Some Like It Hot Brown. The 4 was not part of the original cast last Saturday, but when they redrew and re-entered this thing, he got thrown into the mix by trainer Mike Maker, and Maker's well represented in this field. Happens to be the first bet AI likes Some Like It Hot Brown, the new face in here, the 28% win projection and top pick at 9-2 in the morning line. This was my express bet race of the week last week for the newsletter, so you could go back and open last week's email back up and check it all out, but I'll tell you, I like Kentucky Goats still. 7 days later, I'm giving him another shot. I love this second last year in Stakes Company behind In Love here over the track. I think that's every bit as good as the win Pixelate had over the track. So those are the two horse for course kind of horses I like. Kentucky Ghost and Pixelate, horses who've had success over the track. But I actually think that the race by Kentucky Ghost last year when second was better than Pixelate's local win. And I know I'm going to get a better price, 12-1 in the morning line. So give me the 5 in here, Kentucky Ghost. Who do you like in the mid?
Well, I can see Kentucky Ghost. Interesting. This race is a mile. They've been running him farther than that, mile and 3/8, mile and a half. He's very, though, effective at a mile. I mean, this is a distance that hits him perfectly, I think. Kentucky Ghost, he's a fit horse. He's got a little bit of freshening. He's coming out of a better race. He was a listed winner 2 races back at Monmouth at a middle distance. I mean, your logic is very sound with Kentucky Ghost, no question about that. And again, another horse at 12-1 that you absolutely have to use in any kind of play, whether it's a win play or exotic or horizontal or vertical, however you're playing. Kentucky Ghost is absolutely a major player. I ended up with Pixelate, but not as a strong win play or anything like that. Again, I went back and I tried to find horses that I think or will or have handled this unique course, and Pixelate did. He's getting a little in age on him, but he's only had the 1 start this year. He's obviously doing well for Michael Stidham, and there's every opportunity for him to maybe build on that last race, which was a good race. It wasn't a great race or anything like that. He looked like a horse that was rusty, quite frankly, to me. But if he can step forward off that race, and especially with the Rosario riding and a horse that's been first or second 14 out of 24 times, he's usually a horse that'll give it to you. So at 5-1, I like Pick Slate, not necessarily as a single, but I kind of lean that way, and hopefully it'll work out.
That's the Mint Million, race number 5, one of several stakes races on the card Saturday at Kentucky Downs. We're going to go next to the 9th race on the card, the Turf Sprint, and we've got a big field here, 12 in the main body, 3 also eligibles. Some news to report since our graphics department, which is me, put this together. Marty McGee of Daily Racing Form had some early scratches just published on Twitter right before we came on the podcast. He's reporting that the 7 Gregorian Chant is out of the Turf Sprint, so we're going to scratch the 7, and he's reported that the 13 Artemis City Limits will run and draw into the race. So among the also eligibles, the 13 is already in from the early scratches announced today. And Jeff, the addition of the 13 Artemis City Limits certainly adds more to the pace. This horse is stepping up a class from the allowance ranks, but extremely fast from the starting gate, and from the outside post, you can assume that they're going to come whistling out of there as fast as they can. So Artemis City Limits adds to the pace with the 13 drawing in here.
I'm sure Wesley Ward wasn't that thrilled with that, because this race on paper didn't look like it had a whole lot of pace in it without the also. Now he draws in, and that makes it a little bit maybe more difficult for Arrest Me Red, who looked like going into the race was going to have a real soft time of it up front, and now he's going to have to deal with that fast horse just drawn to his outside. So he also kind of impacting that race in that way. I don't know if Artemis City Limits is quite good enough to win or anything like that, but he could bother Arrest Me Red. Now, Arrest Me Red is a horse that likes to be in front. If you look at his form, he has stalked and pounced and gone on and won, so it's not like he needs it. But if you were to have given him a soft trip up front, he certainly looked like he would be capable of taking advantage of it. He's only runs 10 times with 6 wins, so he's always been fairly genuine. As a 4-year-old, he's fresh. Ired Ortiz comes down to ride him, which is good, so that's a positive. His Jaipur race was very, very good, beaten by Casa Creed, and at the time I was a little surprised by that. The subsequent race by Casa Creed makes it sound like, now I can see it. That's a pretty nice horse. But I do think if he handles a tricky course, Arrest Me Red probably should outclass this field. The California shipper and John Sadrisbon brand, I tried him in the Wicker 2 turning, and that was one of these situations where I didn't know whether he wanted to run that far, but I felt if he could run that far, it'll be in his first try. He ran a good race. He had his chance, got beat by Iridio, who came out of there and ran a good second last week. So I think Brand back sprinting for Sadler, who doesn't ship all that often, but when he does, it's usually for a good reason. I think Brand has got a chance to make some impact because he has enough tactical speed and he can kick on with it. And just win 2 races back in the Daytona down the hill at Santa Anita, which is, I don't know if you can compare it to Kentucky Downs, but it's close enough as far as I'm concerned. I think Brand will run very well here as well. He's listed at 6-1, and I think he's got a very good chance. I'd be surprised if he doesn't hit the board, and I wouldn't be shocked if he won.
Jeff, top pick, Arrest Me Red, as he mentioned, coming off a second in the Jaipur. Let's go back and take a look at that one and let the fans see for themselves.
True Valor by a head. Arrest Me Red, the favorite on the outside in second. And then comes Gear Jockey next and third. Far outside is Gregorian Chant. Towards the hedge is Change of Control and Casa Creed. They are in the stretch, the half in 44-4. Arrest Me Red and True Valor, they're right together. Casa Creed looking for a way out here. Casa Creed now moves to the outside as they come for the 16th pole. It is True Valor, Arrest Me Red. Casa Creed on the outside. They're coming on for the finish. Casa Creed wins again. Second straight year, Casa Creed wins the Grade 1 Jaipur, and he did it today in 6 furlongs in 1 minute 7 2/5 seconds.
So the defending champion was successful in that race, the Jaipur in New York. We've got the defending champion in the Turf Sprint back at Kentucky Downs. That's the 10, Totally Boss, and 12-1 in the morning line. Totally Boss with Florent Giroux back up. Jeff, your thoughts on the ability to defend the title? Last year sat much closer to the pace than the recent races suggest. I'm curious where Totally Boss is in the early running in this race. His recent races say he'll be farther back, but his race last year was kind of that nice first over trip.
Yeah, I looking at the form here, I looked at his recent race. It wasn't really that crazy about him, quite frankly. And he actually won this race, I believe, in 2019. He won that race.
Oh, yeah, but geez, I looked down and I just underlined term. Yeah, he won it in 2019. So
he won it on firm
he's the
ground.
defending champ, I guess.
He did run it in 2020, but that was soft ground in that race, and so he didn't fire that day. And then last year he was fourth. So bottom line is if it's always on his calendar. I mean, he's been doing this for a while. And his race at Ellis Park was okay. I mean, he was beaten as a favorite, though, and finished fourth. Looked like he just ran out of room. Not impossible. I like horses that have won 7 out of 22. Any horse that can win 1/3 of his starts is fine with me. And I wouldn't be surprised, even though he doesn't have any tactical speed, if he does make some kind of impact. If you're playing exactas tries, anything like that, Totally Boss absolutely deserves to be thrown in somewhere.
I made an appointment yesterday to get these replaced, these glasses. My vision's a little off. I missed 2019 in the past performances, so I better get to that eye chart really fast, Jeff. I mean, read them across the line. Next Wednesday I've got an appointment. So 2019.
I'll tell you what, I got new glasses about 2 weeks ago. I went in and they tested me with my old glasses. And I'm not making this up. The doc said, "How are you actually even seeing out of this?" I said, I can't. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, bad vision and horse racing are a tough coupling. It's like everything we read is on like a 2-point font.
Right.
It's not the easiest go,
No.
but totally. Boss, we hope he had a better later, as he did back in 2019. Let's go to the 10th race on Saturday at Kentucky Downs as we move from the turf sprint to the turf routers. It's the $1 million Kentucky Downs Turf Cup. This race used to be part of the Kentucky Cup Series when Turfway ran a September meet, and they'd run the turf races at Kentucky Downs. Now it runs solo of itself. Turfway won't be in action until the winter time. The Kentucky Downs Turf Cup, $1 million, grade 2 company in this one. And Jeff, these horses could be making their way towards the Breeders' Cup turf. We've got a couple veterans in here like ARKLOW and GUFO who have been that kind of quality. They are grade 1 winners, and they probably stand out on the class test of this field. We've got 4 horses from Mike Maker in this race. He's won the race 4 times in 2015, 16, 17, and 19. So Maker's got 4 shots for his 5th win in this race. But the class horses in here, ARKLOW and GUFO, to me, they seem to stand out.
I'm a little surprised that GUFO is being wheeled back so quickly, although when they're offering $1 million, I'm thinking that Christophe Lamont saying, look, I mean, there aren't that many $1 million races. It doesn't. I looked at the nominees, and there's not that much in it. It doesn't look like it's as strong a race as I'm used to seeing. I mean, he's coming off the Sword Dancer win at Saratoga. I don't think anybody in here would have been terribly competitive in that race. So I can understand it. He's 7-5 in the morning line with Rosario staying aboard, and obviously Joel was available. So you could make a strong case for GUFO, although he's never run on this course, and you never know. I mean, it's so unique that just because he ran well on the flat course at Saratoga doesn't necessarily mean he's going to run well here. So if you want to try to beat him, I think logically I'm looking at ARKLOW, and I'm picking him for 2 reasons. Number one, I always pick him, so that takes care of that. And number two is he does qualify as a horse for course. 2 wins and 2 seconds and 4 starts, Kentucky Downs. So I know he'll handle the layout. He also had a brutal trip in the Bowling Green. I am pretty sure Brad Cox was watching that race and saying, "I'm not riding that guy back, not based on that ride." And back with Florent Giroux, who's won with him before. So I think that all things being equal, from a gambling standpoint, and because of the discrepancy in the odds, I think ARKLOW may be my selection here. Even though all things being equal, I think GUFO is a better horse. But based on this race, on this course, and given the fact that ARKLOW's only had the one start this year, so he's fresh. He's got a chance to build into it, where the other horse is coming back quickly. I ended up with ARKLOW.
ARKLOW has won 2 at Kentucky Downs this race twice in 2018 and 2020. So he wins at every odd number or even number year. So he's back to be on. We talked about Totally Boss winning the turf sprint in 2019. ARKLOW even goes further back in the books, winning this in 2018 and again in 2020. His last start, Jeff mentioned, a troubled trip behind Rock Emperor. Let's go back to Saratoga to take a look at that and watch ARKLOW through the stretch last time out.
L'Imperator trying to go wire to wire in this 11-furlong Bowling Green Stakes as they come into the stretch now. It is L'Imperator who's being asked for more as they come through the lane. L'Imperator challenged now on the outside by Rock Emperor. And then on the far outside, it is ARKLOW who is kicking in late. Rock Emperor has come away with the lead. ARKLOW driving on the outside. Rock Emperor to win it by a half length. ARKLOW close to be second. L'Imperator was third in the Grade 2 Bowling Green Stakes.
And they'll be back to Florent Giroux, as you mentioned. Giroux's won this race, the Kentucky Turf Cup, 4 times, and he was aboard ARKLOW when he won it in 2020. So a good pairing there, and I am in agreement. This is the Express Bet race of the week for this week. We didn't come back and go with a mint million 2 weeks in a row. We did use the Kentucky Turf Cup. So if you subscribe to the Express Bet email newsletter, you get my full analysis of this race. I went with ARKLOW as well. I'm with Jeff in here. And I thought Red Knight had a shot to run well in here with the Mike Maker horses. This is a horse who's run well over this course in the past. And I think with Gerardo Corrales riding now with the rail, there's no speed in this race at all. And you don't expect the horse to wire going 1.5 miles on the turf at Kentucky Downs. But I think Red Knight's going to be sent from the inside of the 4 Mike Makers, and he's going to kind of be the target of those. And I think he might stick around to be in there for the exacta. So I like ARKLOW on top, Red Knight underneath, the old 4-1 exacta the way. And if you can get anywhere close to that morning line price on ARKLOW, good straight win bet, nothing wrong with that at all.
One thing I wanted to mention, Jeremy, about ARKLOW is that in watching that video, he was bottled up and then got loose, turning into the stretch on the outside. It went 3/4 of 16 that day. But you can see ARKLOW, he doesn't have that massive blast. You know, he's steady. But that's the kind of horse that can win at Kentucky Downs. You don't have to quicken on a dime there. You just have to find room at the top of the stretch. It's a long run in from the top of the stretch to the wire. Grind away. And I think that's why ARKLOW is actually very effective on this course as opposed to some of the tighter courses that he's been asked to run on.
And just a reminder, if you're playing Kentucky Downs with First Bet and Express Bet, those $10 money back specials every race day, every race at Kentucky Downs. So if your win bet finishes second or third, you get your money back up to $10 in the form of wagering credit. So be sure to take an extra look at these Kentucky Downs races this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Then they have one more race day, a weekday next week. I believe the 14th might be the date of their final of the season. But Saturday, Sunday racing this week from Kentucky Downs, again, with those $10 money back specials. It's the final weekend of racing at Del Mar. The 3-day race week kicks off on Friday with the I'm Smoking Stakes scheduled. Jeff hinted they had some rain and sandstorms and all kind of bad weather there at Del Mar. So we want to keep an eye on the track conditions. And Jeff, as we turn our attention to handicapping 3 races from Del Mar to finish up our podcast, the first of which comes up Saturday in race number 8. It's the Del Mar Debutante. These are the 2-year-old fillies, the best of the division. Could be looking ahead to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies as they stretch around 2 turns for that one. But before then, they'll go 7 furlongs on Saturday in the 8th race. Who do you like in the Del Mar Debutante? Give us your case.
I don't think there's any world beaters in this race. We've got the usual Bob Baffert contingent here, including number 6, Home Cooking. The thing about Home Cooking is that first time out, she was supposed to win. She was 1-2. And she got into a speed duel, 21-2-45, on pressure every step of the way inside and paid the price late, finished 3rd. Came back in her next start 3 weeks later, and they took the blinkers off and took her back in a change of strategy, rather a substantial, significant change of strategy. She sat 5th, 3 lengths off the pace, and then made this huge run and won by almost, more than 9 lengths. We actually featured her. Now it's going 5.5, so now going 7. You would think that would be right up her alley, and I would suspect that it will be. She's 9-5 in the morning line, but her maiden win is what you want to see. She didn't open up and kind of run everybody to the ground. She kind of sat off the pace and made this monster move, drew off, and looked pretty good going. And it was a good number, not a great number, but I'm not sure that there's that much in this race this year.
Mm-hmm. And we had, a weaker rendition. Wonder Wheel didn't run the race we thought she would in Saratoga's big 2-year-old filly race last week, the Adirondack. So if the Del Mar debutante's not loaded, the Adirondack wasn't loaded. What are we looking at for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies division? This has to be one of those years where there's an impressive maiden winner who's going to make a statement in the Frazette or the Alcibiades or the Chandelier Stakes still to come in California. To me, this looks like a late blooming 2-year-old filly class as far as where we get our leadership from.
Especially since it's 2 turns and most of these haven't had a chance. And that's a whole different ballgame with 2-year-old fillies. We've had some injuries with some fillies that this year that are out of action now. So it really is wide open. And I mean, it doesn't look like it's that far. I mean, it's not that far down the road now because you only have maybe 1 or 2 more starts for some of these fillies, and that's going to be it. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm sure that there are fillies out there that we haven't run yet that are gonna pop up and go. But right now it is kind of wide open, I think. I mean, I've seen some nice fillies, but you mentioned I thought we were looking at maybe the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly winner last week, and that didn't happen, I don't think. So right. We shall see. Every week a new one can pop up. I'm not sure if Home Cooking is of that level. I think she's good enough to win this race, but I'm still looking, as you are, to find the monster that we found last year with Echo Zulu, and I don't know if we've seen one like that yet.
The Artificial Intelligence from First Bet projecting the winner for the Del Mar debutante being number 3, and Tell Me No Lies, 24% win projection there. Again, kind of a modest win projection. When you see those numbers in the 20s, they're kind of like lukewarm picks, and you start to get up over 30, 31, 32, 33% win projections. Those are more of the solid picks from the AI to kind of interpret the numbers a little bit there. And Tell Me No Lies for trainer Peter Miller, 3-1, I believe, in the morning line. I imagine Baffert's horse Home Cooking will go off the favorite, though, off that 9-length margin. Let's continue the Del Mar handicapping on Saturday as the John C. Maybe for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf division here. The Maybe is at 1 1/8 on the grass. 4 of these runners come out of the Yellow Ribbon Stakes, Jeff, in what essentially is a rematch, if you will. And Going Global was best that day. Let's go back and take a look.
Going Global still been very confidently ridden. Going Global not been asked an inch, but is moving up smartly on the outside. And then comes Flippant and Avenue de France. Top of the lane now. Going Global strikes the front in the white. And Going Global set sail for home. Avenue de France comes out the pack to try to chase her home. But Going Global is just scintillating in the yellow ribbon. Going Global and Lamberto Rispoli could not have been more impressive. They won it easy. Avenue de France second.
Well, Jeff, I always say when we have a rematch of so many horses coming out of the same race, there's 2 options. Trust the result or look for fresh faces. I think when you start to split hairs in races, you end up taking yourself down a rabbit hole and you're trying to find reasons. So do you trust the result of the Yellow Ribbon? If the answer is yes, they're probably not going to beat Going Global. If you don't trust the result, then I'd say wipe them all out and go looking for a fresh face. Your thoughts seeing that Yellow Ribbon again and how you project it forward?
Well, Going Global has run 4 times at Del Mar. She's got 3 wins and a second in the race that she got beat in. She never should have lost. So I kind of trust her. And she also drops 3 pounds off that race. That's nice the way it works out for her. Beat the same horses, go from 125 down to 122. So that's good. The only fly in the ointment is the weather, and whether or not it's going to rain as much at Del Mar as they suspect it might, and whether or not that might impact whether this race remains on turf or not. Going Global has faced, and Phil D'Amato faced the same predicament last December in the Grade 1 American Oaks, a race that she was 4-5 on. 4-5 in. The race came off the turf. It was a Grade 1, and Phil said, I'm going to leave her in and see what happens. Well, you saw what happened. She got beat a pole. So I don't think she's staying in this race if it comes off the turf. But if it does, even on softer ground, I would suspect that she'll probably beat this field, and I don't think there'll be much value in wagering on her if she does. But she was visually impressive in that race. The fractions that race will mirror what I'm expecting to see in this race. It won't be fast. It won't be slow. It'll be just perfect for going global, who can lay wherever you want her to. And it pretty much boils down to her. And I'm just not seeing a viable alternative. So I think she's going to be a short price winner.
Phil D'Amato, the Chad Brown of the West, as you dubbed him earlier this year in our podcast. He's got 3 of the 7 in here. The other one, I think the only upset shot in here at all, I think going global is a standout, but I think the only upset possibility is going to Vegas, the other D'Amato down on the rail. I love inside post coming off the elbow start. And at 1 1/8 miles, they're going to start on the elbow, come down, take that left-hand turn. So, you know, you can cut that turn. You gain a length or 2 right there. And in turf races where they come down to usually a length or 2 at the wire, that little extra edge might be enough with Pratt riding going to Vegas to come off that elbow. And there's not a lot of speed in here. I think going to Vegas will be forwardly placed. And that to me is the only upset recipe.
And I tell you what drives me nuts when you have that inside draw and you don't take advantage of it. In other words, I see these jocks say grab, take back. What are you doing? Let them run out of there, get position, get that 2 or 3 lengths head start, and then take a hold, you know.
Yeah.
But if you give it up, there's no point. I guarantee you Flavien Prat's not going to give it up. In fact, this mare has good tactical speed, and she just might fall into it. I mean, Park Avenue will probably go, but there's nothing wrong with sitting 2nd or 3rd. Right. You have to think going to Vegas is going to run really well. Now, I don't think she's as good as going global, but
I agree.
She certainly could run 2nd and complete a D'Amato exacta, something we've seen many, many times out here in California this year.
A theme in a lot of these races that we're handicapping is, you know, horses that could be some value up front, getting run down by a better horse, but can provide the back end of the exacta. We've talked about that in 3 or 4 of these 7 races that we've talked about so far. Our 8th and final race to handicap for the weekend will be the final stakes of the season at Del Mar. It's the Del Mar Futurity coming up on closing day Sunday, September 11th. Of course, we'll have a remembrance for all those folks that we lost on 9/11 back in 2001. A somber day, but the day in racing that is unique this year in that Del Mar's closing day will be on the 11th of September, the 2nd Sunday of the month. And Jeff, everything must go on a closing day at Del Mar in terms of mandatory payouts. If there's a Rainbow Six carryover to Sunday, that sort of thing like that, everything will have to go. We're not looking at any big carryovers at this point. So we're not looking at a big blockbuster pot, but we could have 2-3 day carryover by the time we get to Sunday with a mandatory payout. So keep an eye on that for your wagering. The Del Mar Futurity, traditionally one of the top races in the country for the 2-year-olds. Many greats have won it over the years. Do we have that kind of potential horse in this year's field? If there is one, it could be based on the debut, Cave Rock. Let's go back and take a look at his first trip over the track.
They come into the quarter pole now, and Cave Rock is still well clear and going well. Cave Rock by 4 lengths. A belief in this living. Ultimate Gamble is now dropped away. Practical Move makes a move on the outside. Probably the only one got a chance of getting to Cave Rock. But Cave Rock is finding more and still well clear. Practical Move closing the gap on the outside. It's Cave Rock in front. Practical Move is trying to close, but no chance against Cave Rock. And Cave Rock just never gave them a chance. Cave Rock and Wonderland is very impressive.
Jeff, that was over 6.5 furlongs, not the easiest of debut trips. So that kind of makes it even easier to project now to 7 furlongs. The fact that Cave Rock looks so good going 6.5.
So many things about Cave Rock that are positive in this race. First of all, he's by Arrowgate. So you have to think that whatever he does going 6.5, he's going to do better at 7 and be better at 1 mile. Now, there's a colt that really has a chance to be really, really special this year. The other thing is, even though I made the lead in the first quarter, was relatively soft and 22 flat. That second quarter of 22-2, he went from 22 flat to 44-2, and he did it easily. That, to me, shows me that Cave Rock is really good. And then to watch the final furlong when he was just breezing, never asked at all, maintained his stride, maintained his rhythm, looked like he had plenty left. Earned a 101 buyer number. I mean, there are 3-year-olds that would kill to have that kind of number next winter, prepping for the Kentucky Derby. This could be really, really, really an exceptional colt. And again, the Arrogates haven't really set the world on fire in terms of they've had a few good ones for sure. Wayne's filly's a good filly, but this is what you would expect an Arrogate to look like if they're good.
Right.
And I think that he's going to be very tough to beat here. However, Baffert's got 2 others, and they're both quick. I mean, Newgate won his debut going 5.5. Having a meltdown's 2 for 2. He's very fast. He went 21 and change. And I wonder whether Juan Hernandez is going to say, or Bob's going to say, because he can control the pace. You know, Newgate, you got to go, and having a meltdown, you got to go. Let's see if we can find whether or not Cave Rock can sit third, which I think he can, by the way. But let's not bust him out there and get into kind of some silly speed duel. Let's see if he'll settle early. Let's learn something about this colt. And if he can do that, let the other 2 go and we sit third. I think Cave Rock's going to blow them both away. And then we're going to have a favorite, not only here in California, but maybe one of the favorites. And there's some good colts out there for sure. But Cave Rock's got a chance to really step up and prove himself. And I'm really curious to see how he performs. Hopefully, he gets a fast track to deal with, so we don't have to worry about the mud. Yeah, if everything is equal. I think Cave Rock's got a chance to do some serious damage.
I think for the exotics, an interesting horse is Skinner. Skinner is a horse who troubled in the debut, started to close a little. Now is ambitiously placed by a very unambitious trainer in John Sheriffs. He must think he's got something. This horse costs more than $500,000. He's a Curlin, so I know you've got a hug and a kiss for him somewhere. This is an interesting horse that if Cave Rock is running a 22 second quarter again, he's going to gut everybody over 7/8 of a mile. And then a horse like Skinner comes along and passes the gassed horses. I think a Cave Rock Skinner exact is interesting in this spot for the Del Mar Futurity. And I don't think Skinner would be placed in this race if they didn't think he had some talent about him and had some excuses in that debut where he only ended up splitting the field.
They just gave him a race. I mean, that horse was as much cranked up as I would be, and I'm not getting cranked up. But they gave him a run, and they let him run the last part. He had some trouble, which you knew he would have. He's going 5/8. He's no 5/8 horse. He passed a few. He galloped out well, and now you can see how John Sheriffs has trained him since that race. None of this 53 and 103 garbage. I mean, look at this. I mean, minute the 5th, minute flat, 59 and 2. Yeah. They're not giving him a race in this race. No. Now, I can guarantee you, and being by Curlin, there is sky's the limit. Now, I don't think he's ready to beat Cave Rock. Right. But he's certainly ready to run second. Yeah. And if that's what you're handicapping and trying to find out who's going to pick up the pieces, that horse has as good a chance as any. I mean, you've got some nice colts in your Classical Cat. Won first time out. He looked good doing it. Beating that $3.1 million 2-year-old of Baffert's. But he had a very cozy outside 8/8 draw that day. Kind of fell into it. Ran well. Now he's stuck on the rail. So there are some horses that are going to play that may not run quite as good as their first race. Whereas, as you point out, Skinner is going to run a whole lot better, even though he's obviously picking up tougher company today.
And the American Pharoah Stakes at a mile and 16th at Santa Anita could be his race on a John Sheriff's plan, right? I mean,
no question.
Debut, just give him one. Now we're confident in the Del Mar Futurity that we have a good horse. He'll come running in this one. And then the 2-turn race, the Grade 1 Pre-Breeders' Cup. If you could get a future bet on a horse in the American Pharoah, maybe a horse like Skinner would be one, that you would consider long range forecast.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's a very intriguing horse. And whereas some of the others, I think, are one-turn horses. I mean, this might be their Breeders' Cup, 7/8. But Skinner, I think he could be pretty good. But I also think Cave Rock could be really, really good. And we'll find out. Intriguing race in the Del Mar Futurity on Sunday.
That'll wrap up the action on Sunday for the meet at Del Mar and the books for another summer season. They'll be back in November, of course, with the autumn run at Del Mar this year. Again, we want to remind you that the $20,000 September sweepstakes continue with First Bet and Express Bet. What does that mean? Just bet, baby. That's all you got to do. Every bet you make gives you another drawing entry for $20,000 in free money giveaways as part of our September sweepstakes. The more often you bet, the more entries you have. And there's some special ways where you can get double entries for particular tracks and particular days of the week. Be sure to check out the promotions page at expressbet.com. And on the First Bet app, tap the more at the bottom and get the promotions there. And you can see all the particulars where your entries might even double and be worth more in terms of each time you play. But we certainly want to encourage people to take advantage of that. At the end of the month of September, they'll announce all the random drawing winners, and you could get your share of $20,000 in cash. We already talked about the $10,000 $10 money back specials, Jeff, coming up this weekend for Pimlico on Saturday and Kentucky Downs on Saturday and Sunday. That's for win bets, $10 up to a rebate if your win bet finishes second or third. Canterbury Park, you talked about everybody has their Breeders' Cup. Canterbury Park's got the Minnesota Breds Breeders' Cup coming up on their Festival of Champions this Saturday night. The official app of Canterbury Park, of course, this year is First Bet, and it's been a great partnership with the folks in Minnesota. Support that track on Saturday night because we've got $8,000 in Pick 4 and Pick 5 hit and split promotions on Saturday night at Canterbury Park. Between the 2 Pick 4s and the Pick 5, you can share up to $8,000 in additional money if you take down any of those multi-race bets. You get your pari-mutuel winnings, plus just the folks on the platforms at First Bet and Express Bet will share in those $8,000 in additional money. So you can make some good cash Saturday night playing Canterbury Park. And if you like to get up early, Jeff, you'll do this one in your slippers, I'm sure, with a tee. 10 times Express Bet wager rewards points when you bet Irish Champions Weekend. 2 big race meets in Ireland this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The Irish Champion Stakes with Mishriff, one of the featured events going this weekend. Any bets you make with First Bet and Express Bet for those Irish races Saturday and Sunday, 10 times rewards points. So good incentive to get out of bed early.
And also to do some scouting, because very high likely that you're going to have some Breeders' Cup horses running on those programs, whether it's the 2-year-olds or whatever. So always gamble on them if you like, but also watch them because, it's never too early to start doing preparation for Breeders' Cup. And you might see something that you might want to follow. And so I'll be watching for sure.
That's going to wrap up this week's First Call podcast. Thanks to my partner, Jeff Siegel, and everybody around First Technologies. Good luck this weekend. Live racing and stakes action at Gulfstream Park. We've got Pimlico up and running. We've got Golden Gate Fields running. So the First family is full of racing action this weekend. And, of course, the big card at Kentucky Downs. And then we've got great action all around Kentucky Downs, Del Mar closing weekend, a lot going on. Jeff and I will be back on Tuesday to recap it all on It's Official, where we take on 5 topics each week. So between now and then, go cash some tickets, and we'll see you on Tuesday, everybody. Good luck.
We're ready for the start. They're off.